a brilliant idea and you decide to start your own business. You get a mentor and pitch it to investors and raise about $5 million in the first round. After 5 years, your company is now worth $1 billion and you're ready to exit. It sounds like a big dream for many, right? What if I told you I'll help you sort it out? Hey everyone, I'm Hasnae Taleb. I'm a former Nasdaq trader, investor, and entrepreneur. I have built 5 startups before. One of them is now worth more than $124 million. Through my ventures, I advise and help businesses scale, exit, and get listed in the stock market. Today, I want to help you and talk to you about how you can start your own business in 2025. I know it sounds scary for many of you, especially if you're thinking about leaving your job to start something on your own. Now, I want to share advice you probably don't hear much on social media. You see all of these posts saying, quit your school, quit university, and start your own business, or leave your job and launch a startup. And why that sounds exciting, let me tell you, it's not always realistic. According to the latest data, up to 90% of startups fail across almost all industries, and that's a huge number. Years ago, it was much easier to access funding and build a startup, but now with so many ideas and businesses out there, it's getting harder, and everyone is actually competing for the same pool of investors and capital. Before I dive into steps, let me share some of my humble beginnings in business. I have started several businesses over the years, some failed and some worked. I still remember one of my first ever attempts at starting a business. I noticed a problem in the Moroccan market with argan oil packaging, and back then, argan oil was sold in basic plastic bottles, so I thought, what if I create beautiful, sexy bottles that can be marketed internationally? So I designed bottles in the shape of a woman, dressed in vibrant colors, wearing traditional Moroccan kaftans, and some even had glow-in-the-dark effects, creating a magical ambience at night. And I asked my friend Hamza at that time, a designer, to help with branding and prototypes for different types of bottles. And since I couldn't afford to pay him, I offered him some equity instead, and he accepted. Meanwhile, my grandmother had a small farm that produced argan oil, so I calculated production cost, designed the packaging, and even started thinking about international distribution. So I created a business plan, made a few prototypes, and started pitching the idea just on LinkedIn, as basic as that. One day, I connected with a Dutch investor. After many conversations, I shared my pitch deck with him, I signed an NDA and gave him access to the data room and discussed financials and the deal. Eventually, you won't believe what happened. He bought the entire idea from me for $35,000. And for me, at that time, that was a crazy amount of money. What's interesting is that a few years later, a French luxury brand used the design that was pretty similar to my bottle. Since then, I have launched algo trading platforms while I had a full-time job, and then launched another platform, an auction trading platform that was recently valued at $124 million. And now my advisory and asset management firm with a team track record of more than $3.8 billion. But if I have learned anything from my previous experience building businesses, is that building a startup isn't just a basic business journey. It's actually a personal one. When I look back at my earlier ventures, I see moments of sleepless nights, a ton of lessons learned along the way. And if I were to start over today, here is exactly how I would approach it step by step. If there is one thing I would get right from day one, is actually identifying a problem that's begging for a solution. This step might sound obvious, but trust me, it's where a lot of people go wrong. Let me take you back to one of the early days of Airbnb. It's 2 guys in San Francisco realized that during major events, hotels were overpriced and overbooked. So these started renting out air mattresses in their apartment. That simple idea, solving the problem of overpriced accommodations, grew into a multi-billion-dollar company. And in my own journey, one of my earlier ventures that was focused on luxury asset-backed lending, While it was solving a problem, the market turned out to be too niche. Eventually, we had to pivot to a broader market lending against used phones. And that shift not only made the whole business more scalable, but also attracted investors. So if I were starting today, I would spend weeks, even months, talking to potential customers about my business idea. I would ask them about their pain points, frustrations, and what they wish existed. That's how you uncover opportunities that are worth pursuing. Next, I'd focus on building my team. Your business isn't just about the product or service, it's about the people driving it forward. So when I launched my first company, I didn't have the resources to hire top-tier talent. Instead, I brought on board a mentor who had seen it all and could guide me through the chaos. I called on friends and people I knew who were skilled in tech and design. They believed in the vision and worked for equity because they saw potential. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to get started. I'll never forget the advice my mentor gave me during these early days. Hire for passion, train for skill. And it's true. The people who believed in the vision became the foundation of the company's success. Think about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in Apple's early days. Jobs was the visionary, but Wozniak was actually the technical genius. Together, they made history. Your team doesn't have to be huge. It has to be the right people. If I were starting over today, I would first look for collaborators who are smarter than me in their respective fields, and I would also lean heavily on mentors and advisors who have walked the path before me. Now let's talk about the lifeblood of any business, which is cash flow. If I could go back in time, I would drill this lesson into my younger self. Revenue doesn't mean profit, and profit doesn't mean cash flow. One of the startups I have advised had an incredible sales number on paper, but it was always on the brink of running out of money because of late paying clients, high operational costs, and no proper cash flow management. Here is a story to make you understand what I'm talking about. In the 90s, Starbucks was growing fast, but it was also losing money. Howard Schultz, the CEO, realized they needed to focus on positive cash flow to survive. By tightening operations and renegotiating supplier contracts, they turned things around. And today, Starbucks is a global giant. If I were starting over, I would set up systems to monitor cash flow religiously. I would also look for ways to reduce burn rates, whether that's by negotiating better terms for suppliers or just automating processes. Now, with this thought, this will take me to one of the lessons founders learn the hard way, which is never stop raising money. Markets can change overnight, and if you're not prepared, you could find yourself scrambling when you should be scaling. I know a founder who actually raised an impressive seed round and thought they were all set. But a year later, here's what happened. They hit a cash crunch just as the market shifted. The result? The company went bankrupt. And they had an amazing idea, amazing team, and they just had to be out of the game. One thing I would do differently is build relationships with investors long before I need their money. I would be like networking. You just don't have to wait until you're an employee to start making connections. And here's a story to inspire you. When Slack's founder, Stewart Butterfield, was building his startup, he kept investors regularly updated, even when he didn't need funding. When the time came to raise more capital, those investors were already bought into the vision. Finally, I'd make sure the business is scalable from the start. Scalability is what separates the startups that thrive from those that fizzle out. One of my earlier ventures, which you know about by now, taught me this lesson the hard way. We have focused on a niche market, which limited our growth potential. Investors wanted to see traction, but the market was too small to deliver it. Contrast with that, Uber. From day one, their model was designed to scale globally. They didn't own cars or hire drivers. They actually built a platform that could grow exponentially. If I were starting over again, I would ask myself, can this business grow without significantly increasing costs? And that would be the first question I'd ask myself. And I would prioritize systems and automation to handle that growth. Now, every one of these steps come with its own set of challenges, but it's those challenges that shape you as an entrepreneur. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the biggest lesson you have learned in your startup journey? Drop a comment below and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday for more stories and insights.